Welcome. Welcome. I'm Reverend Tomas Garza, and well, here we are, deep in the midst of the 10 specific characteristics of a teacher of God that Jesus mentions here in the Manual for Teachers. Quick reminders, you're always teaching. How? Well, you're always sharing, you're always in what we can call here in the world an energetic exchange with everyone else. So you're always demonstrating something. And so is everyone else, of course. So you're also always learning. The course equates teaching and learning in many different passages and in many different places. So this is an essential component because it's very easy to look at a spiritual teacher, someone like me or someone else, someone that may be more widely renowned, like Deepak Chopra or a guest on Oprah or the Dalai Lama, right? It could be someone who's written multiple books, who's given multiple public talks on an international stage, or it could be someone else, but it's tempting to elevate them, isn't it? We're presented with a thought that's completely of the ego, that they're somehow special, yes, that they're somehow better than we are. No, I'm not saying disparage these folks. Don't disparage me, right? I mean, you can if you want to, but yeah, what good is it going to do you, right? What I'm saying here is that none of us possesses any abilities that you don't also have. Now, you may never choose to access those, and it may never be part of your script, so to speak, part of your path to access them. We all teach here in the world in our own ways. Another lesson from the course is that it's the form of the teaching that's different. The content is one of two things. So we're teaching the thought system that we believe. And there are two thought systems that we choose between every moment of every day, no matter how many different choices we appear to have in the world. We have one choice: love or fear, God or the ego, the thought system of the Holy Spirit or the thought system of separation, guilt and fear, the ego. That's the choice. That's the choice, and we make it. And well, the choice that we make then influences the next moment and the next one that we make, so that we're capable of sucking ourselves into a wormhole of war and depression and anxiety, constant paranoia and attack. Why? We feel everyone is out to get us. Therefore, we must preemptively strike and kill sometimes. Sometimes literally, always figuratively. This is what can happen to us. Look all around. Now, because that can happen based on the result of our choice in the present moment, the opposite is also true. Happily, we can choose our own strength. We can trust the strength of Christ, of who we are. We can trust in our source, our inner teacher. You can trust your guide or guides. And having spiraled downward by your own choice, say, we can emerge from the dream, knowing that there's ultimately no place for us to go at all, because truth has always been. It simply is, and it has not gone anywhere while we have lashed out and berated and attacked one another. and I might add, lashed out at, berated, and vilified ourselves. So when you're practicing forgiveness, please, please don't forget yourself. So there are 10 characteristics, specific characteristics of a teacher that Jesus mentions here in the manual. And the first and foremost is trust in your own strength, in who you are. Everything that we're talking about here stems from that, including today's topic, which is joy. That certainly is a characteristic, isn't it? Now, in the last video, we looked at what the manual refers to as gentleness, and that is rightfully equated with non-judgment. Gentleness is non-judgment. Joy is the outcome of that. If you have set your judgments aside, joy is the result. It flows in. And the reason it does that is because it's who you are. Our natural state is a state of grace. The text of A Course in Miracles states this. In fact, it's at the end of chapter 7 of the text, if you want to look that up, the very last section. Our natural state is a state of grace. People call it a lot of things in the world, including flow or a flow state. You may have heard the term, and it's quite common in spiritual and energetic circles. Flow state. People talk about it in the business context, relationship, right? In Buddhism, it's called right effort, which is effortless. Ultimately, it's that sense of effortlessness because there's nothing to do. We simply allow truth to be as it is, and we fulfill our purpose in the world. It is a state of ease and trust. We're trusting our own strength, not ego strength, not big muscles, not an AR-15, not a large bank account with offshore bank accounts in the Cayman Islands as a tax shelter. That's not what we're discussing. We're not discussing a private jet. If you've got one, fabulous. Perfect, right? Doesn't matter if you do or don't. We're talking about our own innate and, well, God-given strength, which has nothing at all to do with a separate sense of self. As we go along the path, we come to realize that this separate sense of self, doing pitched battle, mortal combat, going to war with other apparently separate selves, we come to realize that's not strength at all. Non-judgment demonstrates strength, and joy demonstrates strength. Let's come back to the subject of you and teaching. And what is it that you're teaching? Are you teaching the thought system of the Holy Spirit or the thought system of the ego? Are you exuding love and extending love? Or are you sending out fear to every single living thing so that they're naturally uncomfortable in your presence and on a razor's edge of defensiveness, waiting to attack you or get back at you somehow, somewhere, at some point in time? Really, what are you teaching? This is the question that Jesus wants us to ask ourselves. So I ask you, what are you teaching? Now, when you set aside your judgment and teach joy, because that's what you are, and exude joy and feel joyous, when you extend this joy, this doesn't mean that your forgiveness lessons are necessarily over. It doesn't necessarily mean full and complete enlightenment and realization of our home in God as a part of God, one with. It doesn't mean necessarily full awakening. There may be opportunities for forgiveness coming down the path for you. And once you have learned and remembered to practice setting judgment aside, then you will not experience these vicissitudes, these events, these, we call them challenges, in the same way. You won't, because you'll see them for what they are. If someone attacks you in any form, or attacks someone else, they're actually attacking you. Remember, there's no one out there. So it only appears that someone on the other side of the world who is pointing a gun at somebody else, it only appears that they're attacking that specific person, doesn't it? Doesn't mean that you're not going to turn on your social media feed and be bombarded with turmoil and people's hateful posts. It's a common enough example that it's entirely appropriate to use it all the time, isn't it? Because we can all most definitely relate. Absolutely. Happens every day, doesn't it? Doesn't mean that the shit's not going to hit the fan. But how you respond to that, how you work with this situation and how you deal with it is going to be vastly different when you've learned to begin setting your judgment aside. You experience these as opportunities to what? Extend love. Everything's an opportunity to extend love. One of the basic principles of forgiveness here in A Course in Miracles is the truth that people are either extending love or they're issuing a call for love. They want love. It's like a small child who wants attention, and they will know, because they've learned, that they can get it however they can. They can come up and give you a hug and say, hey, I love you, or bring you a present, or pick a flower for you, or something really, really sweet, or they can flip you off. They can do something naughty to get attention. We adults are exactly like that. That's special, right? It's not exactly flattering, but if you're willing to be honest with yourself, it's true. Here we're into spiritual practice, deep spiritual practice. So it's not about flattering ourselves. It's not, is it? It's not rainbows and unicorns all the time. No matter how joyous you may be, you'll attract joyous experiences, but there are going to be those moments. And I want to invite you to welcome those moments. They have been placed in front of you, so to speak, on your platter, so to speak, as opportunities to extend love. And why are you seeing these now? Because you can handle them now. You've grown. That's a manner of speaking, because we actually can't ultimately grow. We're perfect exactly as God created us. But because we don't believe that here in the world, because we've spun off and we call ourselves these things called human beings, and we want to be so individual, that's ego. Doesn't mean you can't use your place in the world constructively. How do you do that? Ask your inner teacher. Ask your inner teacher what to say in any circumstance. Ask your inner teacher where to go. Ask your inner teacher what to say and to whom. You have more powerful support than you can possibly imagine And though it may feel, and you may feel right now, that you're completely all alone, you know, I know, you know, on a gut core level that you are not. None of us is. We are not alone. There's no separation of any kind, period. So just because you're not judging people nearly as much as you used to doesn't mean that the crap's not going to come in. See it as a blessing. That's what I invite you to do. It's an opportunity to forgive. It's an opportunity to extend love. The more you do it, and this is directly from Jesus here in the Course, the more you do that, the more time you save. The miracle is a device for saving time. What's the miracle? Well, forgiveness. Any switch, any shift from the thought system of the ego to the thought system of the Holy Spirit, or if you prefer the language, from fear to love, that's the same thing. Any one of those shifts is a miracle. Therefore, having made these before, you are a miracle worker. Do you ever think of yourself that way? I wonder. We're almost always our own worst critic, aren't we? So, all right, miracle workers, I invite you to go forth and extend love. Be a miracle worker, because now the world needs them. It has always needed them. And as long as it appears to exist, it always will need them. However, there is no day but today. When do you work miracles? Not last week. When do you work miracles? Not a year or two from now, when you've got all of your things in order. You work them right now. So go forth, and I will see you back here the next time. Thank you, as always, for joining me.